Hi, YouTube listener. In this video, I make 2 mistakes, maybe more. Here's what I mean. I am used to talking to readers about the difference between fact and opinion. But in this video, we are going to be talking about science and what scientists learn. Well, scientists don't talk so much about fact and opinion. They talk more about theory and law and hypothesis. And I think sometimes I was mixing up the terms of fact, opinion, and theory. At one point, I said that scientists have opinions, but I should have said that scientists have theories that come from testing their hypotheses. So that was one mistake I made. The other mistake I made was in a conversation we have about global warming. And I said global warming is a theory when I should have said that global warming is a fact, because there is evidence that comes from measuring the temperature of the Earth and the Earth's oceans that goes back for over 100 years. And when you have measurements, the numbers that come from measurements are called data. And when you have data that you can put on a graph and look at and get evidence, then the fact that the temperature of the Earth's oceans, for example, have over a long period of time been getting a little bit warmer, just a little bit, is a fact. So that information that has been measured is a fact. I think what is a theory would be looking at the cause and effect of global warming, looking at what are the things that people did that caused global warming to occur, and what are the effects that global warming is having on things happening in the world right now. So looking at the cause and effect of global warming is a scientific theory, but global warming itself is a fact. When you listen to me in this video, try to remember those 2 mistakes that I made. And also, I am going to add a video right after this one in which I go back and I talk about what I talked about in this video. And I think that might help it make a lot more sense. Think of it as part 2. I will call it 14B. Okay, enjoy the video. Hi, Archie.
Hi.
How are you?
Today I have many homework. I need to write Chinese and 4 pages, and 1 page have 5 words. No, 6 words.
Wow.
And math.
What do you like best, math or Chinese?
Math, because it is very easy.
And you also have chess, right?
Yes. Yesterday.
And are you good at chess?
Yes.
Do you like it?
Yes.
What is your favorite piece on the chessboard besides the queen? Everyone likes the queen.
Yes.
Who is your next favorite?
The knight.
The knight? I think the knight is super cool.
The horse one.
Yeah, that's the knight.
And the castle. The castle can go anywhere.
That's called the rook.
But the queen is the best.
The queen is the best, that's true. Did you know that it is possible to turn a pawn into a queen?
Yes, you go to the other side, you can turn the pawn to a queen.
Have you ever done that before?
No, because always somebody ate my pawn. Because pawn is very weak.
That's true. It is weak. You know what's cool about the knight is it can do something that even the queen can't do.
Yes, like here is a pawn, the knight is here, it can go here. It didn't need to wait for the pawn to go away.
Right.
You can just like this, pew, pew, pew. You can like this, pew, pew, pew.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know who likes to play chess
Who?
at my house? Who do you think it might be?
Christian?
Yes. Not me so much. I can play, but I think the hard thing for me with chess is that you always have to be thinking, like we say, 4 moves ahead. You have to be thinking, well, if I do this, then you could do this or this, and then I could do this, and then you could do that, and then I could do this, and then you could do that. Or I could do this, and then you would do that, and then I would do this, and then you would do that. Or there's too many things to remember in my head. Okay, well, let's take a look at deep dive.
Deep dive.
So the characters are actually in the science lab right now at school, getting ready to do an experiment with coral. And the teacher was circulating among the students in the classroom. And that got me off talking about the circulatory system in the body. And because we were talking about that, I kept thinking about it last night after we had class, because, you know, Miss Camp, it just loves to talk about red blood cells and white blood cells. I don't know, I'm just so interested in them. So I decided to show a few pictures of those, and then maybe you will be just as interested in them as I am. And then we will get back to our characters in Minecraft. So the first thing I noticed as I kept kind of looking around last night for pictures was someone did a drawing of the heart, which I thought was a pretty cool drawing. The heart is the most important, well, I don't know. We have 2 most important parts of our body. We have our brain. Maybe that is most important because our brain is what tells our body, every part of our body, what to do. But on the other hand, our heart is what pumps the blood all over the body. And if our heart stops, then our body stops, right? Our life on Earth would just be finished. So these are pretty important. But this is a picture of the heart, and so, or a drawing of the heart. Here is an illustration or a diagram of the heart, and it's a pump, and it pumps the blood all around the body. And the blood gets pumped around in these blue and red tubes. And all together, these tubes plus the heart make up the circulatory system. I read yesterday that it takes 1 blood cell, 1 red blood cell, only 20 seconds to travel all around the entire body.
20.
What did you say?
20. Did you say 20?
20 seconds. Yeah.
20?
Mm-hmm.
Are you serious?
That's what I saw. Maybe we'll have to do some research on that. Well, if we took one of these red or blue tubes and kind of cut it in half and looked inside, we would see the blood cells that are traveling through that tube called a blood vessel. So you can see here's the word blood vessel. This is the fancy name, vessel. This is the fancy name for what this tube is called that has the blood cells traveling through it. And so inside that blood vessel, we talked yesterday about how there are red blood cells and white blood cells and platelets. There's also something called plasma. And the red blood cells carry the oxygen all over the body. The white blood cells are the ones that fight disease like bacteria or viruses and keep us healthy. They are kind of the army that protects the body. And platelets are what will help the skin if it gets cut and it needs to be repaired. And here's another illustration looking at the inside of a blood vessel. And we can see the big white blood cell here, and a red blood cell here, and a little platelet right here. And this is another illustration showing inside the blood vessel, we can see the red blood cells go through it carrying the oxygen, the white blood cells fighting disease, keeping us healthy, and the platelets. Now, if we looked at red blood cells under a microscope, this is what we would see. We can see here the red blood cells. Most of the cells we would see are the red blood cells. These two big ones in the middle are white blood cells, and these little small pieces that are kind of a purple color are the platelets. And a little more information for you on the white blood cell. There are 5 kinds. The white blood cells have the neutrophil, the eosinophil, the basophil, the monocyte, and the lymphocyte. Now, I might be wrong on this, but I believe that these 3 right here are called granulocytes. And there's 3 kinds of them. And I'm not sure if I'm spelling that correctly. A granulocyte has granules in them. You can see this word granules. And if you look at these 3 kinds right here, you can see that each of these has a bunch of little dots in them. Those dots would be granules. And here's one more illustration showing the red blood cells and then the 5 types of white blood cell. Now, a fancy name for the red blood cell is this up here. It's called the erythrocyte, the erythrocyte, erythrocyte. And then our white blood cells, we have the basophil, the eosinophil, the neutrophil. You can see the granules in each of these. So those are granulocytes. There's a monocyte and a lymphocyte. And then these show the platelets. I just think the blood is so interesting. Here's one more illustration showing the 5 different kinds of white blood cells. The monocyte, the eosinophil. The eosinophil shows up if we have allergies. If we have a lot of allergies and we looked inside our blood, we would see a lot of eosinophils, more than usual. And there's the basophil and the neutrophil and lymphocytes. I believe there's at least 2 kinds of lymphocyte, the B lymphocyte and the T lymphocyte. And I think those are sometimes just called the B cell and the T cell, and they are types of lymphocytes. What the monocyte is known for is being able to, the monocyte, I think here, is also known as the macrophage. Now, I haven't really studied this in a long time, but if I remember correctly, the monocyte can actually come up to like a bacteria or a virus, and then it can just eat it. So if it comes up to something right here that it wants to eat, it will just kind of surround it and then pull it in and then get rid of it.
So if it wants to eat a red blood cell, it can eat a red blood cell.
You know, that's a very good question. I haven't heard of a monocyte eating a red blood cell, but I don't know. I'm not an expert. I think that the monocyte wants to eat things that it does not recognize as being friendly, as being a normal, useful part of the body that is supposed to be there. Now, red blood cells are supposed to be there. They are a normal, useful part of the body. So the monocytes should leave them alone. But if for some reason the red blood cells started changing and becoming damaged, then I'm not sure what would happen with the monocytes. That would be a good question to research. All right, so those were just some things about the circulatory system that I thought was interesting after our conversation yesterday. But now we're going to go back into deep dive and find our 5 characters in the science lab. And we need to remember that Harper is not with her friends, because each person needs to have one partner, and we have 5 kids. So these 2 went together and these 2 went together, and that leaves one person by herself, and that is Harper. And she's by herself because she was late to the science class. And so when she got there, everyone had a partner except for one person, and that is this guy, Theo. So the science teacher is talking to them about why are they going to do research or an experiment with coral. Now we need to remember that coral, well, there's many different kinds, but one kind looks a little like this, and it grows in the ocean. And so the teacher says, all around the world, coral populations are in grave danger. A population is a large group of the living thing living together. So if we talk about what is the population of Taiwan, we could say, well, there are almost 24 million people living in Taiwan. That is the population. If we're talking about coral population, we are wondering, well, how many different coral plants are living in the world? And she says this population of coral is in grave danger. Grave means very, very serious. Well, let's see what that means. She says, due to global warming, oceans are getting warmer. So global warming, global means the whole globe, okay, the whole world. I'll show you my globe. Here it is. This is my globe. You can see Australia right there, which means we can probably see Taiwan if we look closely.
I didn't see.
No?
No.
Still no?
Yes.
How about now?
Yes.
You see it?
I see it. Yes, but it's very small, right?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a small country compared to the whole entire world, but all right, there it is. See? So
Yes.
this is a globe, and it shows all the continents of the world. So here is Taiwan. Here's China. Here's Japan. Here are the Philippines. So let's take a look at the globe. This is showing the Eastern Hemisphere. Down at the bottom is the South Pole. That's where we have the continent of Antarctica. And then if we turn across the Pacific Ocean to the Western Hemisphere, we can see the continent of North America and the continent of South America. North America is made up of the United States, Mexico, and Canada. Up at the top of the globe is the North Pole, also called the Arctic. Then if we cross the Atlantic Ocean, we can see the big continent of Africa right here. And above that, we can see the continent of Europe. Here's Europe. And then that goes into Asia. This blue line that we see going around the middle of the Earth is called the equator. Above the blue line is the Northern Hemisphere, and below the blue line is the Southern Hemisphere. Hemisphere means half of the Earth. So here is the globe. This shows us what planet Earth looks like. When we say global warming, we are talking about the whole world. Global means the whole world. So if we look at what Google says about global warming, it says it is the long-term heating of Earth's climate system observed since the pre-industrial period. That means between 1850 and 1900. So going back not quite 200 years, maybe about 120 to 170 years. For that amount of time, they have been measuring the temperature of the Earth. And they believe that the reason that the temperature is getting just a little bit every year, but a little bit warmer, is due to human activity, primarily fossil fuel burning. Fossil fuels would be like oil and gas. And think about how many cars and trucks and airplanes need fuel in order to travel. And so with all of the travel that is happening all over the world by billions of people, a lot of these fossil fuels are being burned, being used. And they think that that is the cause of the temperature of the whole Earth getting just a little bit warmer each year. But that can affect things like coral if it depends on the temperature staying exactly the same and not changing at all. So here the teacher says, due to global warming, oceans are getting warmer, and that causes big problems for sea life. Now, one thing I need to say is that global warming is a little bit of a controversial thing. Do you know what that word controversial means? Controversial. Controversial means not everyone has the same opinion, even among scientists. Now, scientists are not supposed to have opinions so much as just facts. A scientist needs to be really good at telling the difference between fact and opinion. So in order for them to have facts, they need to do research and gather data. And then from that, they can make conclusions. They can say, yes, I can prove this. And once they can prove it, and they can repeat the experiment and prove it again and again, then it is easier to say it is a fact. Well, when something in science is controversial, another big one is, how was the Earth created? How did the Earth begin? When different scientists have different opinions and they are basing their opinions on facts and research, we might say that they have theories. Let's look at that word, theory. And so that is what they believe. And they believe it based on facts from doing science experiments. And so we could say it is a scientific theory. And scientific theories are very close to being facts, except that sometimes different scientists have done different research and come up with different data and prove different theories. And so there ends up being controversy. People who write textbooks for students know that the students are going to read those books at school and believe that everything they are reading is a fact. And teachers are going to teach things to their students, and students are going to believe that everything their teacher says is a fact. So that means that people who write textbooks and teachers need to be really careful when they are teaching science, especially, to explain if something is a proven fact or if it is a scientific theory. Maybe they should explain if all scientists agree or if there is controversy, if different scientists have done different research and gotten different results and come up with different scientific theories. For example, global warming is a scientific theory that I think most schools and textbooks teach almost like a fact. But it is an area of science that has some controversy because there are some scientists who say that it's not possible to say the cause is definitely this, or that global warming is definitely going to cause this. But I do think that it is something that it is important for kids to learn about. When I lived in Alaska, there were many homes that were built on something called tundra. Tundra. Let me write down that word. Tundra is frozen ground. So the ground is frozen. It means you can't dig in it. You can't dig a hole in it. It's frozen. It's like solid. And so they would just build houses right on top of it. But what was starting to happen over a long period of time, because the ground was getting a little bit warmer each year, was that the tundra was starting to soften. And some of the houses were starting to collapse because the foundation of the house was the tundra. And if the tundra started to get a little softer, not quite so frozen, then the weight of the house would start to push in to the tundra and maybe start to fall down. And so that would be an example of something I saw in my life that many people, including many scientists, felt was caused by global warming. So this teacher is saying, oceans are getting warmer. And she's saying that's because of global warming. And then she says, and that causes big problems for sea life. Now she's saying these sentences like they are fact, right? She is not saying it is a theory that. She's not saying some scientists believe. She is saying oceans are getting warmer because of global warming, period. That sounds like a fact. And she's saying that causes big problems for sea life. She's making that sound like it's a fact. So she's making these statements like they are fact. So the students are going to believe her because she is their teacher. It is important for you, Archie, as a student, to be good at listening to what the teacher says and reading what the book says, and then asking yourself, is that fact or opinion? Do all scientists agree on this? Has it been proven again and again and again? So it has changed from theory to accepted fact? Or is this what is the strongest opinion, the strongest theory, and the teacher is teaching it like it is a fact? And after you answer that question, you might say to yourself, well, I'm going to learn this because the teacher wants me to learn it, and I will use this information for any test that the teacher gives me, but maybe I will do some research on this and study it a little bit more to find out if everyone agrees with this, or if there is any scientists who have a different theory. Now, you might not want to do that with everything you learn, but sometimes when we are learning different things about science and about the world, you might find that some things are more interesting to you than other things. But it is important, especially as you get older, to always be thinking in your very smart brain, is what I am hearing and what I am being told fact or opinion, fact or scientific theory? And that way you can, we say, keep an open mind and not just believe everything everyone tells you as being fact, but maybe check it out for yourself. Now, it's easier to do that when you're older. Then Doc Culpepper says, especially for coral, which is very fragile. When she says especially for coral, she's talking about the problems for sea life caused by oceans getting warmer, caused by global warming. So she is saying, okay, a lot of the coral reef is dying. And then she says that's because of the ocean getting warmer, and that's because of global warming. This is an important paragraph in the book because I think the author of this book wants you, the reader, to believe this. So just like the students in Doc Culpepper's class are going to believe Doc Culpepper, you, the reader, might believe this also because Doc Culpepper is a teacher. Except Doc Culpepper is just a fictional character. She's not real. The person who's real is the author writing the book. And so this paragraph right here is really telling us, I think, what the author of the book wants us to believe, wants us, the reader, to believe. I'm not an expert on the coral reef or on global warming, so I will just read this and say to myself, okay, the author of the book believes that global warming has caused oceans to get warmer, and oceans getting warmer has caused problems for the coral reef. And the author believes that global warming is causing entire coral reefs to be dying. So that's pretty serious and pretty sad. Let's take a quick look at what a coral reef looks like. So here's a picture of a coral reef in the ocean. Isn't it beautiful? Many different colors, very vivid colors. That's a word I like to use when I'm looking at the colors of a coral reef. vivid. When I was in 9th grade, I got to go to the coral reef near Key West off the coast of Florida in the United States. And we went snorkeling to see the coral reef. And I still remember how vivid the colors were of the coral reef and all of the fish. And all of the fish that will live in the coral reef area. So you can see there are many different kinds of coral in the coral reef. And here is Doc Culpepper talking, and I kind of covered up her pictures. And so she's showing in her drawing some of the coral. So right here, this is some coral. And she's showing some sea turtles. And I think right here, she's explaining about global warming. Harper chewed on her pencil. She often worried about the impact humans had on the environment. Every time she learned about another endangered species, her heart hurt. Impact, this word impact means to have an effect on. So she's talking about how humans, that's people, can have an effect on the environment. That means people can do things that cause the environment to change. The environment is the place where we live, the place where animals live. It's the earth. And when people do things, it can have an effect on the environment. That effect can be good or bad. When we plant trees, it has a good effect on the environment. Let's look at some endangered species. Endangered, we can see that word danger in the word endangered. Endangered means they are almost extinct. Extinct means there are no more of this animal anywhere in the entire world. And because there are 0 left, none of them can ever be born again. And so the world will never see them ever again. They're gone forever. Endangered means they are almost extinct. There's only a few left in the world. Here's some pictures of endangered species. These are some animals where there are only a few left in the world. This is a poster of the endangered animals alphabet. They found an animal that begins with every letter of the English alphabet that is endangered. So there's an elephant and a leopard. There's a certain kind of frog. There's the giant panda. There's a certain kind of turtle and an orangutan and a polar bear, a sloth. And then Doc Culpepper says, but there's good news, Doc continued. And she said, experiments have shown that coral reefs can be restored. We've talked about that word restored. Back when we were looking at the health bar, the hearts in Minecraft that show how much health you have. And we said, if you lose some of your hearts, if you take damage and lose some of your hearts, then you can restore your health and get your hearts back by eating food. So restore means to make it better again, to get back what you have lost. So we're going to be stopping here. How do you think the kids in the class feel when they are listening to the teacher talk about how entire coral reefs are dying? Do you think this makes them happy or not happy?
Sad.
Yeah, sad. And so Harper is Harper is especially feeling sad. She worries a lot about the environment. She worries about endangered species. She worries about what people are doing on Earth that is not helping the environment, but that is hurting the environment. And so she would really like to help the coral reef. So she is paying a lot of attention to this experiment that they are going to do. And when Doc Culpepper says, "Don't worry, there's good news," I think that Harper is listening very carefully. Okay, we are still in the real world. Maybe at the end of this chapter, we will get back to the Minecraft world. We've had 2 days in a row not in the Minecraft world. Okay, Archie. Time to say.
So long.
Chatter, chatter.
Chatter. Goodbye.
Bye, Archie. Wait, don't go yet. There is a part 2 to this video. I hope you can watch it. We are going to talk more about what we learned in this video. We will look more at what the author's message is in this book about global warming, and we will look more at how we can be a good critical thinker of what we read and what we hear. In fact, at the beginning of this video, I mentioned 2 mistakes that I made, and I was just thinking about it and realized I made a 3rd mistake. I said, for example, that a scientific theory could become an accepted fact. Well, I thought to myself, you know, a good listener will check out what I say too. And so I decided to check out what I said, and I did some research, and I found out that no, a scientific theory does not grow up to become a law. It stays a theory. And we will look at that in the next video also. I hope you can watch it. Bye.